How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I know we've all been like greedy little fans for a few years now of the gimme, gimme, gimme. But Hug of Thunder, you knocked it out of the park with this.
Well, that's nice to hear.
Is it harder to make a Broken Social Scene record these days, or is it just not the focus as much as it used to be?
It's not harder. It's just we slowly had to find our way back into doing it, and we had to sort of get everyone on board with the fact that we were doing it without sort of pushing or asking. We knew we had a lot of time to sort of take our time to see what we wanted to make and figure out what we were doing together, and just slowly get back into each other's lives while creating melodies that we knew so well. The memory muscle of who we were playing together just kind of kicked right back in. So it sort of became about finding the songs and having those songs excite you and want you to keep moving forward. And that's really what it came down to in terms of continuing and creating this record, was that we just wanted to make sure that the body of work we were recording was guiding us.
I mean, of course, the thing about Broken Social Scene is it's such a unique monster, because of, what type of band that you guys are, the extended family, all spread out as you can be at times. And I guess I sort of imagine with the way you all write being something akin to, everybody just sort of drifting in and out of the room once everyone's at, the lake house or whatever.
That's exactly how it was. Really, to be
is
honest.
it
Yeah.
How do you find the structure in that? I mean, is it just a fun little, in studio campfire jam session that ends up being awesome?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And then there's a lot of just spending time sitting and trying to figure out what songs go where and who should play on what. And a lot of times people would just come into the room and we'd sit down and say, here's a bunch of the ideas that we have. We did a 6-day stretch, I believe, with the horn section, and they just kind of came in, and every song that we play them, they'd say, okay, let's work on that one. Let's not work on that one. And you just give people time and freedom to find what they're looking for melodically within what you've already made. And it just really comes down to a sense of trust in having them there in the first place. And you have so much history with everybody that you always know you're going to land. So it was a curious time at first, and then sort of as the summer kicked in and we were out at the bathhouse by the lake and by the pool and doing all those things, you just suddenly you make it about what the real purpose in the first place is, which is friendship. And through that, you find the song. And that's really what it was.
Do you find with that way that, when the outcome happens, that there's any sort of thread that does make its way through the album, either musically or lyrically?
I do. I very much do. I think that we lyrically, having such different lyricists in the band, we found ourselves in the same sort of spot in life and found ourselves sort of singing about things we could get behind, whether it's Leslie personalizing Hug of Thunder about a story and about living as a youthful young woman out there, and then right down to the comments on society that we wanted to make and trying to talk about the struggle and how do you continue and how do you hold on and how do you stay together through these times. And it was kind of easy because that's exactly what we were doing. So there wasn't really any conversations about how we were going to approach it lyrically. Everyone just sort of has their own freedom of expression, and usually that just means you're lining up. If you spend enough time together, you're just going to line up to what the quest's about. So that's sort of what happened.
It sounds like it's any other. It's like a conversation you would have at a friend in the kitchen, when you put it that way.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of kitchen time.
There's always a lot of kitchen time because it's the center of the universe for some.
It
somehow. Those world events, of course, as the story goes, I think you've said that it's sort of started coming together because of the Paris attacks. Is that right?
Well, everyone has their own opinion of why it came together, and recently Charlie just kept reading that, and he said, I don't really want that to be the point of why we got together. We all got together, and this is myself quoting Charles Spearn, because at some point a lot of us were unhappy and wanted to get back to the people and get back to the notion of getting in front of people and playing and seeing if we still had a connection. I think what happened with the Paris attacks was it was very cohesive and in line with our return. And that just sort of sped up the process of us wanting to get back out on stage to get to the people. And that's really what it was. I think in a big group, I've been doing a lot of press, and I've been realizing that, this is one opinion out of out of many, and everyone has their own individual reasons for returning. And though it's cohesive in the little details, there isn't one set thing that got us back. But that, for me, was kind of major because it hit close to home, and the idea of it was so horrific and such a part of the life that we live that it really sideswiped the notion that that could happen. And I think that in doing what you do as a band, you do it for the people who are out there choosing to be in front of you and to celebrate with you and to pay to come and see you and be a part of that. And upon returning, we really, really wanted to honor that the best that we could, because we are a celebratory band. We are an anthemic band. We are a band that wants to be in the room with you, not just to be on the stage, but to be amongst the people. So it definitely gave us purpose within what we were already sort of trying to put together. It just sort of sped up the process.
And you know, not to make it the point of this interview at all, but I guess it made it even more notable because I think you guys ended up being one of the first bands to play after the Manchester attacks too, which is just a crummy situation for anybody to be in. Not, you know, no disrespect, obviously, not making light of what everybody else went through, but
yeah,
you know, just to have that part of the story is, you know, what can be said. But
it did take myself a second to register that was something that we were talking about returning after the Paris attacks. And when we started our first real tour, we landed, and, you know, 5 hours, 6 hours later, something absolutely horrific happened. But within that horror, we were in a town watching people still moving on with their lives the next day. But we went to the vigil, and we felt the energy, and we weren't sure if the show was going to continue, and it did. And our audience came out, and to be in that energy is something that none of us have experienced before, and we were all there together doing that. And it's very humbling, and it's really wipes away all of the unnecessary of this life, and you find yourself purely focused on wanting to play. Mm-hmm. And the fortunate aspect of Johnny Marr coming out and joining the stage with us was pretty unbelievable. And to be in that venue that night, there's really no words for it in the aspect of watching the crowd and seeing their emotions and being there. But we did say there's no place we'd rather be than here tonight, and we meant it. And we just came out and just played. It wasn't even like we played our sets out, or we just said, no, we just got to go and we got to play. And my father was there, so that was strange to have the old school around while we were trying to figure out what to do, and it just felt kind of comforting. And the audience that night were beyond exceptional and beyond open, and that city was very incredible. It was very encouraging and incredible to be there with them.
Yeah. So, the way you guys have always talked about that. I mean, you bring up the word friendship, and I hear that a lot, especially with this one, and just the positivity that you guys put into the world. I would back you up and say that you were the perfect band for the time and place for that moment.
Well, thank you.
As much as any superhero movie can try to emulate that. I'd also say be careful, because all you got to do is open the door for Johnny Marr, and he's officially part of the band. Man likes to do that. So,
well, you know, we've hung out a bunch, and he's been really lovely to me in the last kind of 10 years. I met him through Modest Mouse, and we've had his son come up and play with us before, and he's joined us before. So knowing that he was in town, I've played with him a couple of times. He's come through Toronto, so it was planned that he was going to come out and play. But obviously, like so many who were from there, he was very upset, and he wasn't going to. He sort of just said, "I can't do it, Kev," and I understood that. But I think as he saw his town rise up, and as I sent him sort of texts throughout the day, as I sent him sort of footage of the vigil, and knowing that we were going to open with a song like Anthems for a 17-Year-Old Girl, he called about an hour before the show and said, I'm going to come and I'm going to do this. Yeah. And it's something that I'll never forget. And he's an exceptional human being and a legend, but just such a grounded, down-to-earth person that there's no one better.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful of him to take the stage with us. I will forever be in debt for him giving us that moment.
I will switch gears a little bit. There's no good way to do that from this point.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
To at least hit on the latest single, because Skyline, you know, it comes across as simple, especially lyrically. You know, it's sort of that. What do you call that whole thing? You know, the turnaround. You know, it sort of plays in that circle and everything. And I was kind of wondering about the challenge to keep an idea like that interesting over 4 minutes, which you've done?
Well, that was the song. That was the one song that I'm so grateful the guys sort of grabbed from a bunch of songs that I played them, because really this whole record is just ground up. Everyone in the room creating from ground up, because upon returning, we really wanted the band to have ownership. And Brendan and Justin had heard this song one night, and they wanted to do it, and we did it, and they all brought such fresh sort of love towards it. And then in the mix, we were working with a gentleman, Sean Everett, and he kind of went for that moany drum breakdown, and it just sort of fell into place of guiding us through. There's something very beautiful about repetition and mantras within music, and we didn't completely touch upon that with this record, but with Skyline, I'm glad that we did, because sometimes you don't need much. You just sort of need a few chords, a few sentences, and you need to repeat things for them to register. And it's sort of my heartfelt song towards the city of Toronto, towards the ladies in my life, towards all the, as Emily Haynes would put it, the memory minefield that is that town for me. And some days I walk through that city and I think about everyone who I don't see anymore, and the people in my life and the relationships. That was kind of what Skyline was about. And I'm glad we captured it.
It wasn't until I started reading about it that I had even realized that it is just, those same lines over and over, because it's just a beautiful song as it is. And like I said, that was sort of the impressive part about the whole thing, is that it works without you completely figuring it out right at the beginning. And then once you do figure it out, it becomes more meaningful. Onion skinned, I believe they call that. So,
never heard that.
Yeah, I love this record, Kevin, and it's been so great to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you for loving it. Thank you for playing it, and thanks for the support, because we're just trying to get back out there. We're trying to get back to reaching everyone, and it doesn't go by us. We appreciate all the support we're getting, and the teams that are helping us, and the stations that are coming on board, and the interviews and all that. We're here to return. So thank you very much.
You make it easy for us. You do. All right. Have a fun summer, as someone would say in a yearbook. Have a great summer, and we'll see you around.
Did you sign my yearbook?
Stay the same. Never change. Have a nice summer.
Never change, man. Never change. All right. Thank you so much. You take care.
You take care too. Bye.
Bye-bye.